Now let's talk about while loops. While loops are a bit different from for loops because in a for loop, we already know in advance how many iterations we will have, how many times the code will be repeated. But when we don't know that, and we only have a condition that is necessary to stop the process, then that is when we need to use a while loop. Let's say that I have a variable x equals 4. And while x is less than 15, I want to print the value of x and I want to increment the value of x by 2. In this case, I am writing a while loop that will only stop when x is greater than or equal to 15. I say, while this condition is true, do this. We don't have a particular number of iterations, okay? That's the key aspect of a while loop. It basically depends on the condition, only on the condition. When this condition is false, the process or the repetitions will stop. Let's see the results. We start with the value 4, we increment it by 2, and we only stop after we reach the value 14. We increment it to 16, and now the condition is false and we don't have another iteration. So that's basically the logic of a while loop. It's very common to use a while loop when we are working with user input, because we don't know how many times the user will want to play a game or do something if the program is interactive. So for example, let's define a variable called stop. There are other ways to do this, but I'm just writing this to illustrate how while loops work, okay? While we shouldn't stop, while stop is false, we want to print hello world and we want to take user input. Would you like to stop? Enter Y for yes and for no. If the answer is yes, then we are going to set stop to true. So if stop is true, remember the not operator. This is a logical operator that reverses the truth value. So if this is true, this will be false. And the while loop will stop. So let's run our code and see this. Would you like to stop? Enter yes or no. I don't want to stop, don't want to stop. So since we don't know how many times we will have to repeat the hello world line, we are using a while loop. And then when the user enters Y, we stop. And the program ends. So I hope this illustrates the principle of a while loop. We couldn't have done this with a for loop, because in a for loop you have to specifically set the number of iterations that you want to run. In a while loop we do have a risk that we don't have with a for loop, the risk of an infinite loop. That is a loop that will run continuously. In theory, will never stop until you stop it manually, or the system stops the loop. Let's say that I have a variable x equals 6, and while x is greater than 2, I want to print the value of x and I want to increment the value by 2. You can see that the process never stops. You can only stop it with Control C, or in Mac that should be Command C. And you will see keyboard interrupt. Why? Why did this happen? Well, because the condition was never false. We start with the value 6, and then we increment it by 2. So the condition x greater than 2 will always be true. It will never be false. The process will continue in an endless loop, in an infinite loop, until we stop it manually, or the computer stops it. So now you know the fundamentals of loops. You know for loops and while loops and their key differences. Great work. In the next part of the course, we will talk about functions. Functions are also very important because they help you to write reusable and readable code. So I will see you in the next part.